What's up, everybody? Matt Kajeski here, back again with the Stokastic Best Ball channel. Yes, Stokastic Arsenal is undergoing a rebrand right now, but you don't have to worry about anything. Same tools, same personalities, same analysis, same everything for you guys. And today we are going to be breaking down top stacks for Best Ball Mania 3 on Underdog Fantasy. With me to do so is Nick Lepri. You can follow him on Twitter at Notorious Fantasy. He has been in the weeds with these best ball drafts, and we're going to talk a lot about his exposure, my exposure, and everything best ball. Nick, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Last night I was up until like 1 a.m. doing a bunch of best ball drafts because the puppy tournament, which we're not talking about in today's video, is at about 80% fill. So I was trying to get them in. Some people decide not to go outside and do drafts for the last couple of days and made it very hard for me to get 150 in. I'm not going to get 150 in, but I am very excited to talk about this. And I love best ball. I do them every single day.
Yeah, those puppies filling like crazy. I'm anticipating them releasing more. Again, don't know for sure, but I
Yeah.
mean it's late June. I mean, we have July and August. Hopefully, we get some more puppy tournaments too. But today we are talking about Best Ball Mania 3, and we're talking stacks. So, want to get into a couple little tidbits first. Best Ball Mania 3 is a massive tournament with $10 million in prizes. So, you definitely should be treating this league a little different than your standard 12-team league when we're talking stacks. A lot of the stacks we'll talk about today are with that contrarian appeal, where if you do have them and they perform well, hopefully it's shooting you to the top. Much different than your regular standard 12-team leagues. Anything to add there before we dive in?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You're stacking the ideology, I think I just
Yeah,
said
yeah,
that
yeah.
wrong, behind stacking here is significantly different than if you were doing just one of those drafts on Underdog where it's you versus 8 people, you versus 12 people. You want to go ahead and do some things slightly more crazy. You don't necessarily need to get the most obvious stack. For instance, you don't need just Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce. You might want to get a little spicy and go Pat Mahomes and McCole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, things like that to get be a little bit outside the box. Think outside the box when you're stacking.
Yeah, shoot for the stars, aim for the moon. We are trying to win millions of dollars here, not your standard $10 or whatever in your 12-person tournaments. But before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. What do you say we start? We dive right into this.
Alrighty, let's do it.
Okay, first stack we want to talk about today, New York Giants, and all that begins with Daniel Jones. He is QB 21 on Underdog Fantasy, an ADP of 157, so he very much fits the bill of your late round signal caller. But when I look at Daniel Jones, what stands out to me is how cheap all of his pass catchers are. The most expensive option in this offense is Kadarius Toney with an ADP of 93. You look a little lower, you're going to find the Kenny Galladay's, the Wan'Dale Robinsons of the world. So it's very easy not only to stack Daniel Jones, but you can double stack him. You can get a little bit interesting with the tight end position as well. They're going full punt this year at the tight end position, or so it would seem. But ultimately, this team is so cheap because of how bad they were last year. But I think people are overlooking the fact that they brought in Brian Daboll from Buffalo, who's widely regarded as an offensive wizard, basically. He's a guy that paces the league in 4 wide receiver sets, and maybe they won't be able to do that right away in New York. But overall, I'm expecting more play volume and more pass heavy nature from this offense as a whole. And plus, Daniel Jones has some rushing equity. But I know this is a stack you really like too. Who are some players you're targeting, and why do you like it for a big tournament like Best Ball Mania 3?
Yeah, and based on what you're talking about with the tight end position, my favorite player stack right now with Daniel Jones is Ricky Seals-Jones. I see no reason why Ricky Seals-Jones cannot be an every down player for this team when they do have a tight end on the field. Right besides Ricky Seals-Jones, they have Daniel Bellinger, they have Jordan Atkins. It would seem to me that Ricky Seals-Jones, based upon just what he did last year in that small sample size in Washington, that in its own deserves him to be the starting tight end on this team. They get rid of Evan Ingram, ship him off to the Jacksonville Jaguars, or he left in free agency. I don't remember, but I do know that he is gone now in Jacksonville. And at the end of the day, the Giants are a little bit better than people are giving them credit for. I understand some Giants fans will go crazy. They'll talk about how Daniel Jones is going to be the next Josh Allen because Brian Daboll is there. And I think if you really believe that, you might have gotten smacked upside the head, and that is pretty stupid to believe. But at the end of the day, the Giants are going to be a much better team in 2022. Joe Judge really drastically hurt this team last season, and I think this year they're looking for vengeance. Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney combined for a grand total of 0 touchdowns last year. They backed up the Brinks truck. They gave Kenny Galladay an absurd amount of money, And Kenny Golladay did not score a single touchdown. Kenny Golladay was banged up last season. I think in 2022, this Giants team is going to surprise many people. They're not going to win 12 games or something crazy, but they are going to be significantly better than last year. And in terms of fantasy, another target that I really like, I understand Sterling Shepard may not be healthy, good to go week number 1, but I think when Sterling Shepard steps on the field, he's been very consistent in the past and could easily be the number 3 receiver in terms of targets in this offense. And he's coming off the board as their 4th receiver at wide receiver 103, which is a huge discount compared to Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver 79.
Yeah, that makes sense. For me, it's just the late season Achilles tear, which occurred in
Mm-hmm.
week 15, is really like there's a chance he doesn't play a single game this year. So
Mm-hmm.
you're drafting him, and he makes sense in a Bust Ball Mania 3 aspect because of the potential upside if he can come back early. He's not even going to be owned in every single league. So that makes sense. If he does play, he's going to set you apart to the top. I kind of like Wan'Dale Robinson for that reason, just
Mm-hmm.
because if Sterling doesn't play, he should be on the field a lot. But ultimately, we don't know with Wan'Dale. He's a player who's a very undersized rookie coming off the board on day 2 for the New York Giants. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays behind like a Darius Slayton if he doesn't go perform well in camp. So Slayton's another name to mention, just late round pick. But the reason I'm with you on Ricky Seals-Jones is he's basically like a souped up wide receiver at tight end. He's used a lot like a Mike Gesicki if you look at his role in the
Yeah.
offense. Last year, he had over 300 snaps lined up in the slot or out wide. He only played in line for 158. So when he's on the field, he's basically a wide receiver, and he could be a player that fills the void of perhaps a Sterling Shepard or a Wan'Dale. He doesn't catch onto the offense overall. And you look at his ADP, it is just downright ridiculous right now. Tight end 38, he's coming off the board 215.8, not even drafted in every single league. So for the purposes of Best Ball Mania 3, when you're trying to win millions of dollars, you always want these players that can differentiate at the end of drafts. Plus, he's correlated with your quarterback. Anything else to add on the Giants?
Yeah, the only player we kind of glossed over is Saquon Barkley. His ADP quickly rising now inside the top 20 of drafts, running back number 10. You are a lot higher on Saquon Barkley than me. We just talked about him over on the Fantasy Football channel. So check that video as well. Don't leave now. Go check that out after the video. But Saquon Barkley is a guy that I'm starting to warm up to a little bit. I don't love where he's going because I don't have him as a top 10 back, but I do understand why. You might want to sprinkle on him if you're about the Giants stack.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to kind of leave out running back for the purposes of stacks, generally talking
Gotcha.
about receivers and tight ends, but Saquon is an elite pass catcher, so he should be considered in your stack. And that is going to make you very contrarian, very few people stacking the RB with the QB. But let's go to our second stack. We're going to go down south and talk about the Miami Dolphins, your Miami Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa is QB 17 on Underdog right now. That's an ADP of 131.7. We know the concerns with Tua. He's never quite been able to live up to his draft capital, but he's now playing with by far the best cast of skill position players around him. They bring in Tyreek Hill. You have Jalen Waddle entering year 2. They also make some ancillary additions like Cedric Wilson comes over, who's definitely an improvement as their wide receiver 3. So it's kind of now or never for Tua Tagovailoa. His receivers, Tyreek and Waddle, are quite expensive, but you can stack him with some late round options like a Mike Gesicki, like a Cedric Wilson as the wide receiver 3, who are basically free right now. Talk to me about this Dolphin stack.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, like you said, while Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are expensive, they're still going in ranges where you could technically get both of them, right? If you wanted to go full in on the Miami Dolphins, Tyreek Hill 20.9 ADP, Jalen Waddle 35.9. So you could still get Jalen Waddle. And my favorite player to stack with him, with Tua, is Chase Edmonds. Now, I know you didn't really want to talk about running backs, but Chase Edmonds' running back value, a lot of it's going to come from the receiving work. And I think that a lot of people aren't going to have Tua Chase Edmonds as the main part of the stack. And then, like you said, you can sprinkle on a guy like Cedric Wilson, who I really like as well. So Tua's in a very interesting spot. If Tua sucks this year, he's probably done in Miami. The offensive line is much improved compared to last year. The offensive line was basically a turnstile last year. So hopefully Tua steps up. Quarterback 17 off the board. I really like the value you can get with him.
I like him too. And Edmonds, he makes a lot of sense for a late round stacking RB. His ADP is 111.4. He's RB 36. And we know he's going to occupy that pass catching role. He just doesn't really have any competition for it. Raheem Mostert has never been a pass catcher. Sonny Michel, he can do it, but it's not really his primary skill set. And he might even be the RB3 in this offense, ADP of 206 for Sonny Michel. So I am with you on Tagovailoa. I like Edmonds as well as a potential stacking partner. Our third team we're going to discuss here is the New York Jets. So the other side of New York, the Jets are kind of in the same mold where they have a young quarterback, hopefully an ascending quarterback in Zach Wilson. Right now, his ADP is extremely late, 168.8, QB 22, but they add a ton of playmakers around him. You bring in Garrett Wilson as a first-round draft pick. His ADP is 105.1. You have Elijah Moore entering year 2. You bring in Breece Hall. You add CJ Uzomah in free agency. They're going all in and seeing what they have in Wilson, and they should know after this year. I think if they do take a step forward offensively, these guys are going at supreme values. The only skill position players inside the top 100 right now are Breece Hall at 47.9 and Elijah Moore at 67.3. And that 67.3 is quite the value in and of itself. So talk to me about New York.
Yeah, the Jets here, the other New York team. Spoiler alert, we're to talk about all 3 New York teams in today's video. But Breece Hall is probably one of the most interesting players in all of fantasy football. I don't like Breece Hall that much right now based upon where he's going, but we are mainly talking about the wide receivers here. And I think if you want to get contrarian here, I think that people are. Now, I understand that Braxton Berrios may have a reduced role this season, but I think Braxton Berrios is a very interesting last round pick if you do take Zach Wilson. And I also think playing the tight end roulette here with either CJ Uzama or Tyler Conklin is a great way to get very different with this stack for the New York Jets. My favorite player out of these big guys for the Jets would be Garrett Wilson, though. He is going at a big discount compared to Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, wide receiver 32, Garrett Wilson, wide receiver 51. And I think this is not going to be a 1-2 situation. I think this is going to be a team where it's a 1A, 1B. Even if Garrett Wilson's the 1B, that's better than being the number 2, if you guys kind of understand what I'm saying with that.
Yeah, of course. And this is a team that, I mean, you can tell based on the market, people don't think they're going to be very good. Betting markets don't think they're going to be very good. And part of the way you can remain contrarian is double stacking too. So like you mentioned with Miami, if you end up with Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, it's still pretty cheap. And I don't know how many people are going to be, loading up on the Jets offense this year. So even just by taking multiple Jets pass catchers, you might be able to create an edge for yourself and be a little more contrarian. I also like the fact that Zach Wilson has mobility. No, he's not Lamar Jackson. He's probably not even Josh Allen, but he's a guy that can run a little bit. So he gives you a solid floor that's kind of baked in there. So even if, Garrett Wilson or one of these receivers pops up and Wilson doesn't necessarily have the best game, hopefully that floor can be raised. Any last words on the Jets?
Yeah, real quick. Also, Michael Carter. Again, everyone's basically on their knees for Breece Hall right now. They're super pumped for Breece Hall, but Michael Carter's still going to be involved in this offense in a pass catching role. And I think earlier on in the season, people are going to be shocked at maybe Breece Hall's usage instantly. Breece Hall is going to be the number 1 running back. They drafted him highly for a reason. But I think early on in the season, if say you need a guy for 6 potential games that could be seeing 10 plus points, I really think Michael Carter could be that guy.
I agree with you. I think Carter is a sharp player coming outside the top 140 in ADP. But before we move on, we've been talking all things Underdog here. We've been talking Best Ball Mania 3. Let's actually tell you about the sponsor. Underdog is the best place to play fantasy football in the summer. And they just unveiled this Best Ball Mania 3. That is a $10 million prize pool tournament. All you have to do is draft your team. That's it. No waivers, no trades, no in-season management. Underdog is going to give you the highest score from your lineup every single week, and the highest score at the end of the year wins. And there is no reason to wait. Last year's Best Ball Mania Championship team was drafted in June. And better yet, Underdog is going to give you a first match deposit bonus up to $100 when you use the promo code AWESEMO. That's good for 4 entries into Best Ball Mania 3. To take advantage of that, head to underdogfantasy.com, go to the App Store, or even just click the link in the video description below. Then again, use that promo code AWESEMO. It is going to get you $100 free. All right, heading to our next stack. This is one I love right now. The San Francisco 49ers. Now, you may be thinking, why do I want to stack the 49ers? They have a quarterback controversy right now. Is it going to be Trey Lance? Is it going to be Garoppolo? They're a team that traditionally has been very run-heavy under Kyle Shanahan. To me, this comes down to price. You're getting Trey Lance at a value right now. And I am going to go out on a limb here. I think he starts every game this year. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is out. Trey Lance right now is QB 11 ADP of 87.9. If we were to get that news, I think he shoots up to around QB 7, QB 8 due to his rushing equity. But then outside of Deebo Samuel, whose ADP is 18.6, you have such good value in these pass catchers. George Kittle's falling. His ADP is 50, tight end 5. You can get him in the 5th round of some drafts. Brandon Ayuk is 82.5. He's wide receiver 41. It's really easy to stack Trey Lance right now, and we know this offense is explosive. They've gone to 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. I love this stack, man. Talk me out of it if you can.
Oh no, it's impossible to talk you out of it because, like you said, Trey Lance right now is quarterback 11. Once we hear this news that he is going to be the guy, which basically we already know, right? I am
I like that
very
you said
confident
you didn't say
that he's
if, you said once. I like that.
yeah, once. It's not an if, it's once he is the guy. Once we know for sure. Again, I feel like it's a lock. He's quarterback 11. He's going to move up to quarterback 7. Now, do I think that Trey Lance is going to instantly become one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? No. I don't even know if he's going to be the franchise guy for the 49ers. They drafted him super highly. But what I do know is that in fantasy football, the rushing upside means everything. You don't have to be this elite passer if you can run the football like Trey Lance can. And I think on this team, which is super good with a head coach that is going to know how to use Trey Lance with Kyle Shanahan, we have to believe that Lance is going to be great. And like you said, a lot of the pieces in this offense are discounts. Besides Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, their number 2 receiver, comes off the board at pick 82. If you maybe think Brandon Ayuk's going to be stuck in the doghouse for his whole life, then you can take a shot on Jawan Jennings, Mohamed Sanu, Danny Gray, any of these other wide receivers that are basically going undrafted. This 49er stack is going to be significantly more expensive a month from now when Jimmy Garoppolo gets his ass shipped off to some other team. So right now is when you need to be taking advantage of this. Draft Trey Lance now before it's too late, because maybe he will move up to a point where it's uncomfortable for some people, right? Because some people might not want to draft Trey Lance as the quarterback 7. But if I'm being honest with you, I think that's where he's going to end up being drafted around August.
I agree with you. I really do agree with you. He's like right around the Tom Brady range for me right now, just based on that upside. I like taking flyers on Juwan Jennings. He's a last round pick, ADP 214.5, not even drafted in every single draft. Danny Gray's a really interesting flyer as well. He was drafted with some decent capital, comes out of SMU, and he does something that no other receiver in this offense does. He flies. Think about the 49ers when they had like Marquise Goodwin. He's on the field to stretch the field, and that should get him a couple plays a game. And then if we're like, we saw Juwan Jennings or Brandon Ayuk go down with an injury or something, it's probably Danny Gray that steps up into a larger role based on his capital and the skill set he provides for this team. Any last words?
Yeah, I also think that Ray McCloud could be interesting. Now, I don't know where he's going to fill in this offense, but we did see Ray McCloud for the Steelers last year really step up towards the end of the season. And with the wide receivers they have in their team, none of these guys are going to make your eyes ejaculate when you look at the screen, right? You see these guys, right? They're not basically, I know Matt might not have liked that joke. I thought that was kind of funny. I say that all the time, but yeah, I like Ray McCloud a ton. Again, he is going so undrafted that he doesn't even have an average draft position.
And the reason we're talking about these guys is for differentiation. A lot of these stacks are going to be owned. So if you are trying to create an edge, looking at these players that could work their way into a role, but don't have it secure at this point in time, that's how you can create an edge if things break right for you. Let's go to our final stack. And it is not one that people probably anticipated us talking about, but it's Buffalo. No one needs to know how good Josh Allen is. His ADP is 30. He's QB1. We love Josh Allen. If you're lucky enough to get him, I just think personally there's some interesting contrarian ways you can stack him to remain different in Best Ball Mania 3. So, no, we're not going to talk about Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox, but those players are elite. I think stack them if you get the chance. What I want to talk about with Buffalo is the late round guys where you can remain contrarian. I think stacking with the running back position, like you mentioned, with some other teams makes some sense. James Cook was a fantastic pass catcher coming out of Georgia. He makes sense. Jamison Crowder is a player at an ADP of 131.8. I view as widely undervalued. Should slide right into that Cole Beasley role. And he could operate as the wide receiver 2 here. There's no guarantee that that is Gabe Davis's job. I think Gabe Davis should be the betting favorite. But again, crazy things happen. Then they have an in-house replacement at OC. I don't think it changes very much, and you probably see a decent amount of 4 wide sets. Does that mean Isaiah McKenzie gets on the field with an ADP of 206.4? Or is it Khalil Shakir, another rookie in this offense, ADP of 215.6? Or is it my personal favorite, OJ Howard, a tight end they signed to a lot of money for a second contract, still a young player, never really lived up to the potential in Tampa Bay, a lot of it due to injury, ADP of 215.7. To me, there's just a lot of ways to get creative with Josh Allen, which is why I think he's a fun player to talk about in terms of Best Ball Mania 3. What do you think?
Yeah, especially if you're not comfortable paying top 50 ADP for Gabe Davis, right? Especially because while I like Gabe Davis, he's going to be one of the players with the biggest difference in ADP when you compare an underdog best ball draft, a best ball Mania 3 draft compared to your at home league. In your at home league, Gabe Davis might go in the 8th, 9th round. Whereas here, you have to pay top 50 pick for Gabe Davis. Again, I like Gabe Davis, but I think there is reasons to believe that you should just fade him and draft Jamison Crowder at pick 131, who, like you talked about, he's one of my highest owned players, because I really believe that Jamison Crowder could be the number 2 receiver on this team in terms of targets. He's shown in the past that he's not like Randy Moss or something, but he's a serviceable number 2 receiver in an offense. And I think in Buffalo, again, am I betting on him to 100% guarantee that he's going to surpass Gabe Davis? No, but I'm telling you at his ADP that he is certainly worth that pick. And you brought up a couple of great players as well. I like James Cook, but I definitely prefer Devin Singletary. But if you are comparing the value, right, Josh Allen and Devin Singletary, they don't necessarily work together because Devin Singletary is not this receiving back, whereas James Cook would be. So I like James Cook as well.
Yeah, me too. And like you just, if even looking at the last couple of years, Dawson Knox has never been an every down tight end, kind of till he was forced into it last year. Could OJ Howard play like some snaps and get out there in 2 wide sets and maybe even have like a Harrison Bryant role? If he plays like the Harrison Bryant tight end 2 in this offense, maybe they go a little more 12 personnel. I think he's a player with some touchdown equity in the most explosive offense in the NFL with an ADP outside the top 215 that you could use to differentiate yourself. And again, that's the point here. We're not trying to advocate that OJ Howard should be this top 20, top 18 tight end. He's just a player that could get you unique in the last round of drafts. Anything else to add?
Yeah, and with OJ Howard, all you need is 6 touchdowns, and then maybe those 6 games he elevates into your lineup, especially if you're punting the tight end position and you're looking for a lot of upside with your stack. Josh Allen and OJ Howard makes a ton of sense if you're going with Buffalo, because while OJ Howard hasn't really, he's one of those guys that also hasn't really put it together for a whole season. We've seen flashes of OJ Howard in Tampa. If he is really given the opportunity that you believe he could be given, then he could maybe finish inside the top 20 fantasy football. Wouldn't surprise me with how good Buffalo is.
For sure. And we're limiting this to 5 stacks today. We're going to talk about more in the future, but let us know in the comment section who you think might be a really good contrarian stack in Best Ball Mania 3, whether it's Patrick Mahomes and you take a dart on Mecole Hardman, or Lamar Jackson and you try to guess his wide receiver 2. Nick and I want to hear it, and also let us know what you think about the stacks we talked about today. But he is Nick Lepri. You can follow him on Twitter at Notorious Fantasy on the screen in front of you. I am Matt Kajeski. You can follow me on Twitter at Matt_Kajeski. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you again next time.